another random topic off the top of my head. Just kind of
Let's
came
go.
to me.
I love
It's
this.
just like a light
Creative
bulb went off.
juices.
Yeah,
Absolutely,
just being
right?
creative
I
as
love
hell.
that.
I'm like freaking Van Gogh, just like
That's what I'm
painting away.
talking about,
Really?
brother.
Or
Yeah.
whatever it
Van
was.
Gogh?
Painter?
Why'd you do the chipping
Because he
thing?
painted around.
Wow. Okay.
He cut his ear off too, I think, right?
Yeah, we're not gonna
Gave
go
it
down.
to-
We're not gonna go down that
okay, yeah,
path.
yeah. Oh, yeah.
But the path I do want to go on
Yeah.
is a path that not very many people take or very many people get, and that's getting to the NFL.
Yeah.
What a transition! I mean, you're not gonna get much better than
Jesus
that.
Christ. You do this.
I
Don't you?
kind of do this here. Yeah, I've been practicing a
I
little
could
bit. Yeah,
tell.
me and Lindsay will stay up,
Yes,
and I'm like, "Hey, babe, I want to be a good podcaster. Like, would you mind hearing me?" And
Role play. Come
and
on.
Jared's like,
Jared's like dad.
Jared's like,
Stop.
that
Yeah.
sleep, right?
Stop. Yeah.
But anyways, back to my great transition, the path. So for those that don't know, which is probably everyone listening, because we haven't done a good job explaining a ton of our background, but I trained Greg when he was in high school. He was 17 years old and was fortunate enough to train him through college and off seasons, and then during his time in the NFL. And so we want to kind of just, this is a little Q&A action right here from
Okay.
me and B. Yeah, we just want to kind of pick your brain. I think the listeners are probably more. Our thousands of listeners are probably more intrigued
Millions.
about kind of the NFL experience, especially because now the kids are, starting to train more of high school kids and they probably want to hear some about your NFL experience, and they probably don't care about the geeky stuff me and Brandon have to offer.
Even though it's very important.
Yeah, hell important,
Absolutely.
right? Yeah,
Yes.
but
I'm relevant.
but I think I got a few questions I want to kind of dive into. We'll get deep, we'll get personal some, right?
Let's do
Yeah.
it,
Because it's been cool because I've been able to see you grow, and B's known you since that time too, right? And so being able to see you grow since 17-year-old in high school, you come in, you haven't worked out much. People, not to throw shade on any one individual, but people like, hey, like kind of talking down on you, right? Like he does this, parties, this and that, right? You come with me, and I never saw that side. You just worked your ass off with me, right? Now there'd be times you stay up all night partying, but if you had to work out with me at 8 a.m., you were there hungover working out. This is in high school, right? We're not saying to do this, kids.
It's terrible.
But granted, you were there, and like your work ethic, like obviously you had a work ethic before that, but that's when I first met you, I only knew you having work ethic, right? And so you went there, you go to Baylor, you start for 3 years, right, at Baylor, defensive end, and some like outside linebacker edge stuff, right? But defensive end was the technical.
Mainly, yeah.
And then you sign as an undrafted free agent with the Green Bay Packers. At the time, it was, and correct me if I'm wrong, it was the largest amount of money they gave to an undrafted free agent, right? Or something.
Yeah.
Close
I
to-
had a certain amount guaranteed.
Right. And so success, right? Progress, right? At what point, where there was at high school or Baylor, did you realize, like, damn, I'm pretty good. I think I could potentially have a shot at the league. Like, what point did you really start thinking, like, hey, like, I think I could?
Yeah, my pops, for everybody who doesn't know, my dad played. He had the privilege of playing up at OU, won some natties there, and then got to play in the league. And so in my house, I'm the junior, so his name's Greg, my name's Greg. So it was almost like my people, I never had that sort of pressure. It was almost like expected but not expected, if that makes any sense. They weren't like, hey, you're doing that football thing, but it was almost like, oh, you went to college. Like, okay, that's what you're supposed to do. Like, you know what I'm saying? So as far as like thinking about it, I don't think it ever really registered to me. And then being in high school and just my experiences, whether it be with the coaches or the people who I was around, it just wasn't like a very encouraging environment. And so it was more so of still trying to prove to myself or gain that confidence that, hey, maybe I can do this. And getting the offer from Baylor, shout out to Coach Bennett. He gave me that offer. They were done recruiting defensive ends, everybody, period. Threw me an offer, and that was sort of my sign from God. So like you alluded to, like I would BS in high school, and sort of made a promise to God, like I wouldn't play with that opportunity if I got it. So God bless with Baylor, worked my butt off whenever I got there. And I'd say sort of like my second, third-ish year, like after maybe like my first year playing for real, I was like, yeah, I can hang.
It's like your second year, like starting. You think like when
After my first year, like starting.
Yeah. So after your first year starting, you were like, man,
I was like, I can. Yeah, I can.
Yeah.
I don't know if I will. I don't, none of that. But like it's there. And the only reason I knew that is because we did, you do the combine in off season, and my numbers were like on par for everybody.
Roof,
They were like better than all the averages for the DNs in the combine. So coach was like, he's like, dude, do you see your number? Like, he's like, we need to get this on the field. Like, you need to da 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 da. So I needed some like mental unlocking, some just more intentionality, like on the field skill work, and put it all together my senior year, and got the opportunity to go play in Green Bay.
Yeah, and for those that don't know, because we didn't tell anyone, so Greg played with Green Bay for 2 years and played with the Panthers for a little bit, and then we have stories of
Yeah, that's a whole nother
it's
story.
a whole nother
Whole
story,
nother podcast.
whole nother podcast. We need to sit down with a beer, a cigar, to
Kick
get into that. But back to, because you said you put up some really good combine numbers. You obviously had a really good trainer in high school and so on.
he's
But
short white guy.
but do you remember the numbers at the combine? So not like the numbers that we did in the off season, but do you remember your numbers at the combine or at the
At the pro
at
day?
your pro day that you did
I think
for like
I
the
ran,
40 broad jump, all that stuff?
for 40. I think I ran a 4.5.
4.5.
Yeah, I think, or maybe it might have been a low 4.6.
Okay,
Um,
Still moving.
that's moving.
and what was my broad was, I think I got like 10.2, 10.3,
Yeah.
something like that.
And we got 10.6 or 10.7 in Tampa.
Yeah. So I'll tell y'all why they were, because that's not really my numbers, but I'll air it at the end. Vertical, I think I jumped like a 36. And my 7 cone, I think I ran a 7 flat.
Yeah.
And then I did a 60, and I did that in 11 seconds. But I wanted to preface all that saying I was dealing with a injury at the time of training.
Yeah.
So was doing all that with like a groin and ab injury. So
Yeah, more than just that, okay? The adductor is
Here
literally
we go.
torn off his pubic
Here we
symphysis,
go.
okay?
Yeah,
Like,
here we go.
sports hernia, guys.
Yeah. It's more than that.
yeah, it was a big deal. So
yeah.
to get to that, actually, I want to talk about the injury a little bit. So obviously, very fortunate to spend a few years in the league, right? Outstanding. But those 2 years in the league probably defines, just kind of what you've been through in life in general, just facing adversity, right? You sign, great deal, everything, and then season-ending injury or season-ending surgery, right? You had the adductor surgery, and then you come back and you're practice for a few weeks maybe, but like you were on the IR essentially the
Oh,
whole
you're talking about the first year.
the whole first year, right? So
Yeah.
the whole first year.
So they like let me play 3 weeks. I kind of showed out, and then after that, they could have. We were going into the playoffs. They could have picked me up and put me on, or they could have put me on IR, and I got the chip for the rest of the year. So they had seen enough in practice. They felt comfortable. They wanted me to take the rest of the year, keep getting ready,
Right.
and then rolling into that next off season.
Right. So first season couldn't play because of the injury.
Yeah.
Few months go by, off season comes in, we're training in Tampa, right? Then COVID hits.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
And
Best friend.
usually a typical NFL off season is gonna be like, after the Super Bowl, 8 weeks, OTAs, then come back for 6 weeks, but this wasn't typical off season. So you were here training all summer, doing OTAs, and I think it's safe to say we were pretty damn good shape, right?
Yeah,
Like we
yeah.
were like, we were set, we were ready, like, hey, like, let's get you to freaking camp.
Yeah.
Like, we're about to show out.
We were repping out, 600, 585 or something?
Yeah,
on
so his
squat.
numbers in squats like 585, like reps of 8. His bench was like 360 for like reps of 5. Not to mention how he was moving just in general, right? Like
And I was lighter.
we were ready, right? Like he looked a lot better than he does now. Okay, don't judge him too hard.
Don't judge me, baby. She's
But 2
feeding me
years
good at home,
Wasn't
guy.
that good. boy.
But back to why I preface all this, because we were in great shape, and you still had the injury, right? But we were okay, and then boom, you get COVID. And you get COVID, and it hit you hard, but nothing crazy, but it still took you out for like a month. And that was like a week before you had to report to camp. So you report to camp with COVID, do all the quarantine stuff, and then you get an infection from one of the stitches or something, right? You get staph from one of the stitches from the previous surgery.
Yeah, so what it was, boom, I'm training with Steve. We're good. I'm going up to Green Bay. I'm a down south kid. So I was like, I'm going to go with my boy Ira, go train at where they used to work, and I'll get the same quality. B was still there, so I'll get the same quality. I'll be down there with my buddy. We can like sort of mess around a little bit right before we got to go. Boom.
Like a week before camp, right?
Yeah.
My buddy was in the NFL too. He was with the Texans, so we were both like, one more week, and then boom, we're like one last hoorah almost, sort of, right? So go down there. His girl ended up having COVID. She worked at the hospital. She brought it home. He got it when he went to go get tested for the Houston's, because I don't know if y'all remember, but they had everybody do mandatory testing like a few weeks out of off season or whatever. So boom, he had it. So I called the guy from Green Bay. He was like, "You go here, get tested. They'll test, give it to you in 15 minutes." I had it. Everybody in the house had it basically. So yeah, I went through. I got it. Didn't have any symptoms really. I couldn't taste or smell, but that came back after a couple weeks. But what it was like essentially, during the first surgery, they have to do stitches. They had to stitch me back up, basically like sew my muscles back together type deal. One of the stitches were infected. So when I caught COVID, the way the doctor explains it is your body was doing such a good job fighting this infection for the past year that you've had since the surgery. But COVID came and it's like your body just sort of let go of that and just started fighting the COVID. So when I was going through COVID, I just noted that my groin was swelling up real bad. But I've never I never had a surgery before. I've never been like permanently injured. Like nothing crazy has ever happened except for, when I got there. And so I get to Green Bay. So I had COVID. I couldn't fly. I had to drive like 22 hours to Green Bay.
Oh, buddy.
Yeah, it was miserable. Yeah, it was bad.
No, it was miserable.
Yeah,
There's no way to put it.
Yeah. It was
It's almost like cramping up on top of a mountain.
Yeah, almost. Something weird similar to that. Yeah. Drove up to Green Bay. But at this time, I just thought it was COVID. Didn't really tell anybody. And I couldn't see anybody. Because when I got there, I tested again and I still didn't clear. So I was in a hotel room for like 5-6 days. And this thing is just swelling up. It's just like so sore. But I'm like, damn, what did I do? I'm thinking like it's like normal part of surgery. So we go, and they're doing the physical, right? And I'm like, hey, doc. Like, he's like, okay, you're good. We've seen you enough. And I'm like, hey, doc, I got something for you to look at. And I show him, and he's like, what's the, freaks out, like, holy shit, like, what's that? Da-da-da-da. Like, I was like, this isn't normal. And he's like,
it's a big golf.
Yeah.
It's swelling in my groin.
It's like the size of almost like a tennis ball.
It looks like a hernia, but it's not.
Yeah. It's bad. So he was like, what? No. We got to get you to Philly. So I did an MRI. Ended up being fluid. They drained like 11 cc's of fluid out of me. Took me to Philadelphia. I had the guy who did the surgery initially had to go in there, take the stitch out, sew me back up. He left a drain in me. I had a drain in me for like 8 days. And then after that, like, mind you, this is all during camp. Like, this is like the worst.
You're missing.
This is the worst
practice in the conditioning shape you were in.
Like, imagine you pick a kid up. He's like, okay, we're gonna shelf him for the year. Next year he's gonna show out, and it's like, this is my time to shine. And it's like, nah.
This is happening. Yeah.
So this is like, this is happening right now. So all this is happening. So by the time that I like was even clear to work back out again, and we had like 2-3 weeks maybe. So they can't just throw you back out there. You got to train again. You got to start back training.
The adaptation period or whatever.
Yeah, the adaptation period. And not even that, like just making sure, like, okay, your wound's closed. You can't get infected again. Like, you're clear. Like, boom, like, wipe, brush your hands with it. So by the time I had got cleared, we had like it was a week left of camp, which anybody who plays football or knows anything about football, like that's, they pretty much got their might be one dude that they were like, on the fence about, but they pretty much got who they're getting.
Not to mention no preseason games during the COVID year either.
Yeah.
So you couldn't
no burn, no nothing. So like cut day was Sunday. So on Friday, we had practice Friday, Saturday. On Friday, Goody, the guy up at Green Bay, the GM for them, I don't know his name, but they called him Goody. Has like a weird like Italian name, something like that. He comes down because I was freaking out, and I was close with the medical people there because I had spent so much time, and so Flea, asked Goody to come down and talk to me, like calm me down or whatever, because I was like, I'm like, y'all ain't finna do this to me. And Goody comes down, GM. And we had like a quick like 5-10 minute meeting. He's like, look, you know what I'm saying? You've been hurt. He's like, what we're going to do is we're going to cut you. We're going to bring you back on practice squad, let you work your way, get your, feet up under you.
Yeah.
And then we'll go from there. Whatever happens, happens. I was like, okay, cool. Shook hands, everything. That's your word, right? So boom, they cut me, re-signed me, practice squad. First week was rough, coming off like not playing for 2 years. Second week, got my feet under me. Was doing good on special teams. Had got like a sack off like a quote unquote sack off of one of the better LTs. So felt good. And for whatever reason, we had tight end injuries. and I was the first to go, like
Yeah.
week 2.
Yeah.
And so got cut, and they said like, "Oh, we'll call you back." Da, da, da. Never did. And then I had my college coach ended up coaching at Carolina, so I had that relationship. He brought me on. I had healed back up. I was ready to get back into it, like mentally fresh. And like 3 weeks into that, they knew me and stuff, so I knew the defense. They were like, "Hey, you looking good? Like you ready to play? Like we're thinking about playing." Da, da, da. Right when they started saying that, my cousin got like murdered, like home invasion, and it just we weren't on good speaking terms, so it just like destroyed me. But we're still in the middle of COVID, so I had to like ask them, could I go? And then like I could only go for a day.
This is like middle of the season, like week 8,
Yeah,
7,
8ish, 9 or
7.
something
Yeah.
like that. So asked, can I go? So I flew out Friday and got back Saturday night. So it's just a bunch of all that craziness. Get back. I had to sit out a day because whatever with quarantine or
Protocols, yeah.
whatever. And then I practiced all week. Everything seemed fine. Got cut on Saturday. Nobody said anything. None of the old coaches or anything,
Yeah.
except for Coach O. He's a real one. And Coach Fair, who was the D line coach, reached out and let me know what was going on. And they said just you sort of things things change after your cousin died.
Yeah.
So that's sort of how it went. And then fiddled around with the idea. Was sort of scorned by the NFL. Didn't really like. I felt like I had been bullshitted by my
Yeah.
agent, my the GM, everybody who basically said they had my back, like all bullshitted me. Which is fine, what I'm saying? I was young, didn't know.
Right.
But sort of felt scorned. So played with the idea, went back and forth. And then,
Yeah.
finally settled on.
And also to mention, every time, like whenever you signed with Carolina, you had to quarantine for a full week before practicing.
Yeah. So anywhere you go, you got to go for a whole week.
Yeah.
So,
So
and
just
if
in the
you,
hotel, couldn't do nothing.
yeah,
So
you're
it's
in,
like,
and it's like you're not, like you can't leave. Like it's not like, oh, you can go walk. Like, no, they don't want you to leave.
yeah.
Because it's like if you get quarantined, like if you get it, and then you don't want to take that risk either. Because
Right.
it's like,
Yeah, because
I am trying to get a job in the
Yeah.
NFL. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like they'll take any reason. So no, it was just tough year, tough circumstances, like anomaly circumstances, but we're here afterwards,
Yeah.
standing.
So how do you feel? Because I'm under the belief like when someone goes through adversity or when someone goes through trials, like they're going through it because eventually they're gonna help someone else down the road that's going through. It might not be the exact same trial, but they're gonna help someone else going through trials and adversity, right?
Yeah.
So how do you feel like that adversity has helped, like impacted you? 'Cause that was 2-ish years ago, right? So how has that impacted you, like now, today, and what you're doing, how you're helping, and like how's that motivated you? Just kind of like how has it impacted you overall to what you're doing now?
Yeah, I remember talking to my girlfriend at the time, my wife now. Like after everything was done, I was in Austin, and I was like, yeah, like I failed. Like in this, I think for athletes who get that far, you go so far getting your dream that you're like, you can, I know people who lie to themselves and shit, but hey, I got there, and then for whatever circumstances, couldn't stay there. So it's like, damn, I kind of failed. So going through that sort of real, like that was like my first real like adult failure. You know what I mean? Like, damn, like what do I do now? And I think just going through that, the depression, the mental stuff of it, the trying to find like, okay, what do I do now? Because I didn't. People would ask me like, what do you want to do? I don't know. You know what I'm saying? And Steve would always be like, you should do. So just battling through that. And I think like the main thing for me now, being in a position like that's my story. I wear it with with a badge of honor. Like it is what it is. And I don't hold any resentment to like what happened or what I could have done. But what I can do is give back to the kids. So like when I was in high school, him and a guy named Coach Foster were like the only people who really poured into me from a coaching aspect. So if I can be one of those people for underprivileged kids or just kids who are told they're not good enough, then that's sort of why I do it. And I think I feel like we're all that way. And I think we just use this as the vehicle to do that. You know what I mean? This is how we tap in with the youth. Let them know that they're not forgotten and that they can do whatever they feel like doing. And I feel like that's why I'm here now.
Yeah.
I'm just
It's
meant to give
impactful.
back. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, so it was a lot, but I think, like you said, everything happens for a reason, and I have a wealth of knowledge about random things that people, like kids in those positions, will go through, and I can give them a little bit of advice.
And it's impactful. So let's get on a happier note. This is good. This is a good note. This
No,
is
it's
a needed
terrible
note.
note.
Yeah. But let's go over like give us this like your favorite experience in the NFL, like our funniest, like lighthearted, whatever experience in the NFL, talking to a teammate, or you don't have to mention any names, but just like one of your favorite experiences that you had, or
I think, man, the rookie shows were fun. We so Green Bay had never done them. You know, they had Mike McCarthy forever before I got there, and then they got LaFleur. When
Yeah.
LaFleur is like, West Coast, like we're gonna flavor this shit up a little bit. So we did our first rookie show and just get into mess with the rookies, talk, chop it up. Everybody had their own thing, and then we all had a thing at the end, and it was like a haka show. And the dude who was leading that was like, Polynesian, and he was like telling us about all kinds of stuff and just, bullshitting with the guys and talking, and then having to go out there and like. I played like one of the video guys I got my hair and like combed it over with gel and wore glasses and like double t-shirt. And
so you look like me. Yeah, go.
yeah. So we did all that, and it's like you're in front of like Aaron Rodgers and Preston Smith and these Tramon Williams, these people who are where you want to be, pinnacle pros, and you're just like making an absolute ass out of yourself, and it's like they're like, let's go.
Good moment.
So I think that, and then man, there's so many like little like weird stories throughout the season that it's a different sort of brotherhood. It can be weird at times, but it's cool.
Yeah.
Small elite class.
Yeah, I got to see the best thing about I was injured a lot, and when I got to play, I did do my thing. But the best thing I got to see was, no matter what profession, like the absolute 1%, 1%
Absolutely.
of people doing what they do. Like, and I think that was an invaluable. Obviously Aaron Rodgers would be like the standout, but there was Jair Alexander and all these sort of BJ and all these people. Kenny Clark, these like crazy athletes, like absolutely insane, and it's regular. It's just normal, and the way they care about their business and how they do it. How they communicate and how they function was a big learning experience for me in and of itself. So invaluable.
At the end of the day, man, just like you said, I think no matter what level of the NFL you played at, whether you're on that, like I said, that Hall of Fame arc, like an Aaron Rodgers, or somebody that's an undrafted free agent trying to make the team, I think if you poll the millions of people who've played football from high school and in college level who try to make it to the pros, you're in a very less than 1% people just playing on the practice squad.
And my little trash talk is they paid me not to play.
Yeah, and I think not enough respect is given to everybody that plays at these next levels. It's always like you watch it, when you're a couch guy watching TV, it's like, oh, this guy's the best, and everybody else is just background players. And it's like, nah, man, you got to be
the coaches actually had a saying in the they were like, you got your main player, but then you got your core, and if your core ain't worth shit, then I don't care what main players you got, you're not gonna.
And you gotta be top
dogs. Those
top
dudes
percent
were
get to that
like
next
the
level.
special team demons and the guys who were playing like tight end, fullback, and running.
Absolutely.
Those are the dogs that you're like, wow, bro, like you really, and they'll be there. Dude, how long you been here? Oh, this is my A season. Like, damn.
You're
just a dog.
I just want 4.
Give me the second contract, baby.
Yeah. I got 2 questions, and then I'm done. The first question I would say, based on your experience, I know we train a lot of aspiring next level athletes, college, high school, who are wanting to get to that next level. Some who either are in the position where they've been told they're not good enough, or on the flip side, you have the other echelon where it's like the high expectations are pushed on them, and both are in a position where I gotta have some self worth for myself, whether I have low expectations or somebody's heaping these heavy expectations. But I would say, what would you say would be in your opinion, the number one trait or quality that these athletes should invest in now to get to that next level?
You just got to cancel out the noise. You know what I'm saying? Like, pick what you want to. I was bad at doing that. I had success when I was young, and they put my name in the paper, and I was like, my dad had like mess with me about it. He's like, you've been reading your own news clippings, ain't you? And I'm like, you know what I'm saying? Like, busting my balls. But Like if let's say you're like the underdog, right? That it'll be a bunch of shit talked about you. Can't pay attention to all of it. It's like, at some point it's like, okay. On the flip side of it, if you have a lot of expectations, like same thing, like you can't let that mess with your brain. I think the biggest thing they had a saying, especially once you get to the league or college or whatever, there's a bunch of 6'6", 270s, 260s walking around running whatever. It's like, what are you from the neck up? Like that's what Coach Collins think. Like, how can I make you better from the neck up?
Yeah.
And I think for a young athlete, like find older people who give a damn about you. If you can't get them online, there's millions of YouTube podcasts. Go listen to the information.
Like a Reach Training podcast.
Like, exactly. Plug. Shameless plug. But yeah, man, I would say that, man. Get in the lab, you know what I'm saying, and too much of anything is a bad thing. So don't lock yourself in a closet. You don't gotta like shun yourself away from the world. You still deserve to celebrate your successes, even though somebody says that, oh, you were just a practice squad player, or you were just you just walked on to the college, or you're second string in high school. You got there, you worked your ass off to be there, and you deserve to celebrate a little bit. Not a whole lot if that's not where you want to be.
Right.
But Jason Tatum just had this thing. He was talking, and he was like, he came, he took about 3-4 days, locked himself in the house, came out and partied. He was like, he read somewhere that this guy who had gotten all the way to the Super Bowl, I think, they lost. Kurt Warner is who it was. Got all the way to the Super Bowl, lost, didn't celebrate it. And he's like that. Kurt Warner talks about that being one of the things that he regrets. He's like, you accomplished so much this season. Yeah, nobody wants to be number 2, but motherfucker, you number 2. Like out of all these people, out of all these coaches, out of all these, like, you know what I'm saying? Give yourself a little bit of grace, and at the same time, don't give yourself too much. You know what I mean?
Yeah, I think to your point, the two things with, like you said, turn off the noise. That's very hard to do nowadays.
Yeah, it's everywhere.
I live through noise,
Yeah.
and I'm constantly getting feedback on who I am, especially if I'm a younger adult, whether I have next level aspirations or whatever. You're still a kid,
Yeah.
and you're getting feedback from really no one.
Yeah.
But don't get me started on social media. It's really
another
nobody's
episode.
really trying to get you. It's just it's not real. However, it has a real effect on you. That, and then I like what you said about celebrating yourself. I think that's something we as coaches may have dropped the ball on, because so much work and it's
You can
needed,
get caught
right?
in it. You can get caught in it.
But we push that narrative that, hey, you gotta work hard, you gotta and it's like, get up, put the hoodie on, go to grind, and it's just like, man, the same way I get burnt out as an adult, and I forget that sometimes the regeneration, that refilling moment, is to stop and be like, man, I did that. I forgot who it was, but the my goodness. Oh, Fred Taylor was talking about he basically, when he was coming back from his injury, he got a mental coach, and the guy basically, what he did was he had these clips. I think it was like Muhammad Ali speaking, Michael Jordan speaking, and these top guys speaking. And what he did was he took their audio, so them talking in the video, and he put up Fred Taylor's highlights in the background. And it was like, he basically told him, obviously you got to grind to get to this next level, but you have to remember and remind yourself who you are. So he made him look at his film, his highlight film.
Which is easy to forget.
But what do we teach sometimes? We teach, hey man, you did that, you just got to keep moving. Forget about it. But it's like, in that story, in those celebrations, right? If I'm the type of person that's going to grind anyway, me looking at those celebrations is not going to make me prideful. What this is going to make me do is going to reinvigorate me to know that I'm that dude.
Yeah.
And then the other question I have is, you kind of spoke on it, but you didn't say which one, so I just want to have that question. You talk about the expectations and kind of how your dad played at the highest level, right? And so you coming up, it wasn't like a surprise that you went to college, but it also wasn't like, hey, I need for you to be your dad. What do you think comes first? Do you think meeting somebody who believes in you as an athlete, does that come first before I can really be like, man, I can do this? Or does a self-belief come first? Which one would you say? I don't know if there's a right or wrong answer, but in your opinion.
Yeah, I think it just depends on how you're raised.
Yeah.
Like I had a rough upbringing, and so the confidence wasn't instilled early, and so I sort of needed that outside validation, which is why I would get so crazy when my name was in the newspaper. You know,
Yeah.
that's why I couldn't focus.
Yeah.
And likewise, why like that was so important for Steve to be able to pour into me, because like everybody outside was saying like, no, you're not. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
But I think I've met young men who were like way younger than I was and hella confident. Like you can't tell them too much, and not in a bad way. It's just like they're very sure of who they are.
Yeah.
And
do you
so
think that, like you said, I'm gonna cut you off, but do you think that came from, like you said, you didn't get it early on, so maybe that came from somewhere?
I think it's
early
instilled when if you're a child. For me, like I have a son, a 6-month-old. Like I'm gonna instill in him confidence first.
Yeah.
A lot of people, and some people, like to fair point. Even if you got 2-parent household or 1-parent, whatever, like sometimes your parents aren't confident, and it's like you can't teach what you don't know.
What you don't know.
It's a whole nother just.
Yeah, it's a whole nother podcast.
Make sure you tune in next time too.
Take some tissue and talk about our childhood trauma together. Let's do that.
I don't even know if we're a training podcast. We're just a freaking podcast.
We're not talking about strength.
From a mental aspect, from these kids, and you'll see like stereotypically the guy who makes it out of football, single parent, like his mom worked 3 jobs, busted her ass, like he's got to take care of his little sister, his little brother, like it's all like from his mom, like it's all, I did this for you, mama, you got a house. Like what's the first thing they do? They buy their mama a house. Why? That's what was instilled in you. You know what I'm saying? Like that's who poured into you. That's what meant so much. And so like if you have that, because I've met like Preston Smith. It was Preston Smith. I don't know his backstory like to a certain degree, but I do think he only had a mom growing up. And the way he spoke about his mother was lovely, and that's like he's gotten 3 contracts in the NFL. He's made over $100 million. You know what I mean? Yeah. Like, and he's a supremely confident person.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? So I think I think it has a lot to do with who you are, because you could be born into lions and you're a sheep. Just there's always we all got that one cousin who's just a little timid.
Damn, it sucked to be a sheep.
And and vice versa. Sometimes there's a lion born into a sheep family. You know what I mean?
Yeah, I think too with that the lion and sheep thing. The best. I don't know why I'm saying it now. It just sounds so good. But the quote I heard was I forgot who it was, but they were talking about basically the kid was more of a sheepish. He was a guy that he liked everybody, but people would always bully him. And he said his mom told him one day, she was like, "You have to be. Sometimes you got to be a lion to be the sheep that you really are." And I think it's more like that. Like there isn't really, people have this thing, lions and sheep. And it's like, no, sometimes you got to be, have the lion type mentality so you can live in peace. Right? Some people are more naturally prone to one or the other, but I think there has to be a natural bit of both.
100%.
But to your point, I think that's good stuff. Because I think I agree with you. I think it has to be instilled. It has to be purposeful, whether you come from a single parent household, both parents in the home. Because like, as we know, that confidence thing, I don't see a difference in a lack of confidence between certain kids who come from one area or the next. It's either there or not through all. There are, some are doing, may from a outside standpoint do well than others, but some of those kids in those single parent households have supreme confidence, and some of the double ones don't, and vice versa. But like you said, I think it all comes down to being, as a parent or somebody who comes across a kid like that, knowing that if I can probably instill that in them, it's still on them. It's like you said, it's still on me to believe it at a certain point. I got to pick it up and believe it for myself. But coming across those individuals, as we talk about this coaching aspect, knowing that it's our duty to, build these people up, build these young men and women up. So that's good stuff. Good story, man.
Yeah, thanks, man.
Thanks for sharing.
No problem, man.
Thanks for sharing. He did such a good job sharing. Y'all should subscribe. All the YouTube,
like, comment,
podcast stuff.
You know what I'm saying?
Just do it.
Share. Hey, tag my boy.
A lot of good impact. But my biggest takeaway is my guy can still play. Okay, we'll see you next time.
That's good.